KYWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, light snow, -12. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. How does the City of Ottawa plan on spending your tax dollars? City News reporter Chris Curries with those details.
It's budget week, and the first board to present their draft budget is the Board of Health this evening. Now, directions are set at 2 to 2.5% of an increase, but Board Chair Catherine Kitts already pondering if it should include increased funding from the province, which already covers 70% of base funding for Ottawa Public Health. Also at tonight's meeting, a report from Ottawa's Chief Medical Officer detailing the family doctor crisis in the capital, which is dire. The latest estimate that 100 to 150,000 Ottawans are without a family doctor is, quote, likely an underestimation, while no new immigrants since 2020 have been matched up with a family doctor at all. Chris Curries, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Scattered flurries this afternoon and into the evening as well. The guaranteed high is -6, and we're going to reach that a bit later on today. We're really watching for some cold air to sink into this portion of the province, and most of eastern Canada will have some of the coldest temperatures they've seen all season long, but specifically Ottawa Thursday night through Saturday, we're going to be in dangerously cold territory. So I am expecting Environment Canada to issue some advisories or cold weather warnings because of it. Overnight tonight, we are down to near -18, the guaranteed high -6.
City News time is 10:02. In about an hour, the House of Commons will begin proceedings for the first time in 2023. As the fall sitting of Parliament gets underway, MPs have the economy, inflation and healthcare on their minds. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
The rising cost of living and an expected recession are front and center as the government and opposition prepare to restart their legislative work. All eyes are on the budget, with the government hinting at more targeted inflation supports for struggling Canadians. The opposition Conservatives have hammered the feds on spending, while the finance minister looks at more belt tightening. A pending healthcare funding deal with the province is also on the horizon. With a first minister's meeting set for next week, the NDP will be requesting an emergency debate tonight to address some provinces expanding private options under the public health system. Government House Leader Mark Holland has also said there will be changes to the gun ban legislation, which has been criticized for expanding the ban too far.
Weapons that are, used to do mass killings off the streets, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't interfere with those that have hunting as a way of life and a passion.
Also be on the lookout for new legislation to better protect air passengers after the travel fiasco over the holidays. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And the WHO says COVID-19 is still an emergency. City News reporter Alex Bloomfield has that story.
After a Friday meeting of the Emergency Committee on COVID-19, the WHO Director General opened today's executive board meeting by revealing the recommendations and his decision on the threat posed by COVID-19.
The committee has advised me that, in its view, COVID-19 remains a global health emergency, and I agree.
He says health systems remain strained in many countries, and 170,000 people around the world died with COVID in just the past 8 weeks. However, the Director General adds there is no doubt the world is in a far better situation than a year ago when the Omicron wave was at its peak, and he remains hopeful that within the coming year, the world will transition to a new phase. The Public Health Agency of Canada has said the WHO designation will not affect its response to the virus. Alex Bloomfield, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, good morning. Happy January 30th to everyone. It is going to be a wild couple of hours here with us today. Lots of different topics we're going to be talking about today, and I hope you stay with us all day and, of course, follow us all afternoon. Any breaking news, our City News team will bring that to you right away. We heard about the death of Hazel McCallion, of course, the former Mississauga mayor who broke a lot of barriers. We're going to be talking to former Mayor Bob Chiarelli about his time with Hazel and anything he has to remember. Of course, she passed away at the age of 101. She certainly is a legend. We're going to be speaking with Bob a little bit later about her and really the impact that she's made. We wanted to speak this morning with Robin Brown, the co-lead for 613-819 Black Hub. Good morning, Robin.
Hey, Sam. Good morning.
Robin, I thought about you this weekend. I thought about so many people in our Black community and how tragic the news out of Memphis was. The death of Tyree Nichols is just so incredibly heartbreaking to watch. The video is gut-wrenching. How have the last few days been for you? What are some of your reflections?
Well, I guess the very first thing was just thoughts, setting my thoughts at Tyree's family. And then, as always in cases like this, just thinking about my own two sons, right? Two sons who are like, late teens, 20s, and just, when I see that kind of thing happening, I immediately wonder and worry about them and just being out there in the city of ours. And then I have not watched the video, and just like I haven't watched the George Floyd video, and I won't, because it's that would be too traumatizing. And then bigger question, Sam. I guess the big thing that jumped out, one of them was that what happened is like one of the biggest arguments against what people who say, one of the solutions to the problems with policing is more diverse officers. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't get more strong evidence than this, that diverse officers don't change policing. Policing changes them.
Wow. Well, say that again.
Diverse officers don't change policing. Policing changes them. Right. And just to follow up on that, some people might be thinking, because that's an idea. That's this whole idea of representation, right? Representation is so important, right? And it is in places, let's say, like education, right? Where like diversity there, having a director of education or teachers, that seems to work. But in policing, though, it is clearly shown it doesn't. Like the U.S. has had diverse officers for a long time, and it's, as we see, it doesn't stop. Up to this point, like having black officers wasn't stopping their white colleagues from killing black people. Now we're seeing that it's not stopping black officers from killing black people.
Mm-hmm. I want to play a clip, just the audio, obviously, of Tyree's mom.
Mm-hmm.
We want justice for my son. Justice for my son.
Justice for Tyree. Justice for Tyree. Justice for Tyree. Justice for Tyree.
And I think, Robin, when I heard his mom speak, and not to relive it, but I mean to hear that he was calling out for his mom and the connection that they had, and how she has basically said, not only have you taken my son away, but you have, she's speaking to the officers, you brought incredible disgrace to your own families. And so, here's a mom who, within a very short period of time is not only thinking about her own family, but the moms of these officers. I mean, to your point about them being 5 black officers, this is, it's just such an incredibly tragic time for 6 families, really.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and then, and the, of course, the other, so many angles to this, but the other angle, all right, is obviously we see the swift reaction here against these black officers, right? They're immediately fired and immediately charged. And we got to look at that and go, okay, look no farther than, what happened to Constable Daniel Monsignor here, who was charged with the death of Abdi, right? He was only charged after an investigation by the Special Investigations Unit, right? And then, again, these officers were fired immediately. Monsignor was on paid leave for 4 years and then was acquitted, right? So there's another issue here in terms of just how, again, these particular officers who have done a horrible thing, but how they're being treated as opposed to if that had been 5 white officers.
We're speaking a little bit later, Robin, actually just after the 11 o'clock news with Chief Danny Smythe. He's the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. And one of the issues that I want to ask him, and, I think it relates to both instances we were just speaking about, both tragedies, is that, is this a training issue? Because as I was watching the video, which is very, very difficult to do, I kept thinking to myself, this is not he was not a large man. He was only, his mother shared that he weighed 150 pounds. So how 5 men of that size, which, combined weight is probably about 1,000 pounds, how they could not restrain a man of 150 pounds. Is this a training issue? Do you think it's a training issue?
I'm really glad you raised that, because this is so that training is one of these, again, these reforms that people suggest are going to solve the problem, right? So we actually touched on the diversity, more diverse officers, training, and body cameras, and I'll get to that in a second. So training, no. First of all, there's tons of evidence that show that training doesn't change the situation. Even Peter Slowly came in right off the bat. I was surprised in one of the meetings we had with him how honest he was. But he's like, man, training doesn't, like this kind of training, like whatever sensitivity, it doesn't work, right? And that's basically because again, this goes back actually to this what I mentioned about the diversity in education, like what kind of works, but not in the police. It's because the mandates are so different of the organizations, right? The police were literally created to control marginalized people. When I say that, like the RCMP, right? So they were the Northwestern Mounted Police originally, were literally created by Sir John A. Macdonald to move Indigenous people off their land. Right? Most other police forces in North America were actually created as slave to catch runaway slaves. So they were literally created to do that, and they just have continued doing that, right? So and there's no training that will stop them from fulfilling their mandate, right? So that's the thing. So the more diverse officers doesn't work, train doesn't work, and then body cameras. This again, I also want to address, like some people will say, hey, look, it's good they have body cameras because we got this on video, and therefore that's it. Well, no, from the people who have been pushing for body cameras, we've been saying from day one, all that will result in is way more video of Black people being killed, and that's what's happening. It hasn't stopped Black people from being killed, right? So all these reforms don't work.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting that you say that, because I remember, sort of having, not as eloquently as you just said it, but sort of having that same thought when I was watching it. Like, if you're doing this and you know that someone could review this tape, then what would you do if you weren't wearing something and that someone could review? Because the body camera footage, for those that haven't watched it, is very subjective in a way, because sometimes the camera has fallen off and it's basically lying on the ground, so you can hear audio. But the most damning footage, I think, is from the street cam. Mm-hmm. So there's a street cam that catches it all, and from that vantage point I just I could go on about it forever. It's so disturbing. But from a body cam perspective, I just thought it isn't really useful in some ways, because sometimes it was just not even, you couldn't see anything, but you knew the audio obviously was there. But you definitely bring up a good point. Can I ask you about something, Robin? And once again, this was playing through my mind on Friday night as I watched this and heard this mom. As I watched the video, the word that kept coming up for me was ego. Because when I watched it, this young man gets pulled over immediately. It's abrasive. It's a confrontation immediately. He runs. He's scared. He's trying to get home. He's nervous about this. So when they finally do catch him, they're very mad now. They're mad that he got away on them. So there's a lot of what I would call sort of ego around this, like that this young guy got away, and boy, we're going to teach him. And some of the language that's being used, which of course I could never say here on radio or TV, this is the kind of language that you would think would be used in a gang, not in a police force. So do you think any of this was ego?
Well, no, like I said, that goes back to my previous point about it's actually more about the mandate of the police, right? And and the kind of attitudes that mandate just ingrains into the officers. But just the one thing about the body cameras that I think is really important for your listeners to understand. Body cameras they're not on all the time. The officers have the choice whether to turn them on or not. So that's another big reason why they're like a very little use. And then another aspect we haven't touched on, Sam, is the fact that, and then you saw the video, so you saw this. I've only heard this, but I'm told that there's the 5 officers who were doing the beating and then others who were watching it. And this raises a real issue because so bystanders, right? So right now, I've been speaking to some other police forces, and a thing that's becoming, I guess, kind of popular these days is active bystander training, they call it. The idea that, I guess in that case, right, that these bystanders would be trained to speak up. The problem is that active bystander training is voluntary. It's voluntary that they have to do this, and that is the issue. There is a the bottom line is there's a police force in Camden, New Jersey that brought in some bystander training, but bystander rules that are mandatory, right? Where it's mandatory if officers see their partners beating up on people that they have to speak, and if they don't speak up, there's consequences. That's the kind of stuff and in that case that led to greatly reduced amounts of reports of use of force. That's the kind of stuff we need.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really important point because you do see, I think it's 3 officers that are sort of arrive on the scene a little bit later. And then you see what is also very disturbing to me, Robin, to be honest, is the 2 EMTs that show up. And this young man, I mean, they wouldn't have known this, but this young man had colitis. He had a very serious injury, surgery 2 years 2 years earlier. So he was very, very obviously injured. And they were, come on, sit up for me and all that kind of stuff. And just the way that they managed him as well. And the really the call of duty in terms of duty of care certainly was not there. Robin, I really appreciate your time today. I know it's a difficult topic, but thank you.
No problem.
Robin Brown joining us, co-lead for the 613-819 Black Hub. Right after the 11 o'clock news, we're going to talk to the president of the Canadian Chiefs of Police. I have some questions for him, big time. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum.
$20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Un Chef, prendiamo un café. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
I did it. I need it.
A hero gave it.
And I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
My name is Chase Nicholas. I am a Mi'kmaq hockey player. Growing up, I always remember my family talking about the Mi'kmaq as the creators of the game of hockey. In grade 7, I did research on Mi'kmaq hockey sticks as the first sticks of the NHL. I found a Mi'kmaq hockey stick made in 1917, the same year the NHL was formed. I was surprised to find out the very stick I was holding was made by my great-great-grandfather, Alexander Cope. In 1934, an elder known as Old Joe Cope wrote a letter to the Halifax Herald claiming the Mi'kmaq created hockey. I found out later that I am a direct descendant of Old Joe Cope. There was a time when Mi'kmaq children were torn from their families and not allowed to speak their language, losing their words and stories. But the stories are coming back to us. Stepping on the ice, I take pride knowing the roots of the game of hockey stem from my ancestors in the Mi'kmaq Nation.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, she broke a lot of barriers. She was amazing. I had the opportunity to meet her so many years ago, and I cherish those moments. And of course, the one and only Hazel McCallion. Unfortunately, she passed away yesterday at 101. What an incredible legacy. We wanted to get caught up today with former Mayor Bob Chiarelli and speak about Hazel. How are you, Bob?
Very well. Thank you, Sam, for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Bob, when you think about Hazel, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
A lot of history and lots of enjoyable anecdotes. We could use a full hour, but unfortunately we have 10 or 12 minutes, so we'll try to squeeze some of that history in and some of the enjoyable anecdotes.
Absolutely. So when's the last time do you think you spent time with Hazel, Bob?
Probably was about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was a meeting in Toronto, and she was at it, and she was still going.
And it's amazing to me because just recently she was appointed, I believe, to the airport authority at Pearson, and you know, it was just kind of funny. I think she was appointed maybe 2 years ago, and somebody commented, "Oh, you know, do you think you'll see out your term?" "Oh yeah, I'm going to see out my term." Like, she at 99 still being appointed to boards and incredibly smart, really transferred Mississauga from kind of a sleepy warehouse town to a dynamic town that people really called home and lived, played, and worked in.
Yep.
And what are your thoughts in terms of how she...
I would start by saying that Hazel McCallion left a big footprint on Ontario and, in fact, on all of Canada. For example, she broke into politics before women were even welcome in the corridors of power, and her ceaseless energy propelled her to become one of Canada's unbeatable politicians, as most people would say, earning her nickname of Hurricane Hazel for her unstoppable drive. She would never stop, and she was always very alert. For decades, she was recognized as a politician who could get things done. And there are a lot of anecdotes around, and I like this one. Hazel always had a plan. It was this: think like a man, act like a lady, and work like a dog. And her plan was always, don't give in, do your research, but don't give in. Whether it's to federal government and the Prime Minister, the provincial government and the Premier, developers, business people.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my greatest memories as mayor was to be in the same room as Mayor McCallion, watching her do her thing and winning with respect. She was an artist at it, and very, very well respected.
Very well respected, and really she did have the ear of so many people in decision-making positions that she would really move, Mississauga towards the place it is today. And you think about, what a thriving place it is, Bob.
Absolutely, and she built it, and she worked hard at it. And I don't think anybody else could have done as well as she has.
Mm-hmm.
She was always impatient about the exclusion of women from work, politics, or sports. She was a leader for women, as well as a leader for her constituents. And get this, she was a trailblazer. She played hockey as a young girl, and then professionally in the 1940s.
Wow.
The McCallion World Cup resides in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. She's known as a hero in the Canadian women's hockey world. So she did more than politics, and she was respected for that as well.
Absolutely.
In fact, I remember when I was mayor, when Ottawa was hosting a mayor's conference, which Hazel attended, It was in winter, and I was driving her to the airport. She was going to take a cab, so I said, I'll drive you to the airport. We drove along the canal. I think it was in January. She saw people skating on the canal, and she became very angry with herself that she forgot to bring her skates. She was all about 85 years old at the time, and she was still a skater.
Wow.
So Hazel would tell stories about Mississauga. One of them was Mississauga not hiring women as garbage collectors. She was told this was not women's work. So she lost her patience and said, who do you think carries the garbage to the street in the first place?
Right.
Well, Mississauga, soon after that, started hiring some women for the job. So she had a lot of spunk, for sure.
She certainly did, and I really appreciate you sharing about her today, Bob, and some love, love for her. I love some of those anecdotes for sure, and that's why we called you, Bob. I knew you'd have some good memories of Hazel.
Well, I do. Just after 1 year, she became mayor of Mississauga, and this is fairly well known. She oversaw one of the world's largest peacetime evacuations of more than 220,000 residents, when a freight train of 100 cars, which were loaded with dangerous liquid chlorine, derailed in Mississauga. She'd only been elected for a year at that time. She single-handedly drew international recognition because she evacuated 220,000 residents, and it was a bit of a miracle.
Wow. Amazing.
At Big City Mayor's Caucus, there was what's called the Big City Mayor's Caucus, where the mayors from the larger cities get together with senior federal officials, sometimes even with the Prime Minister. Hazel McCallion was always one of the leading mayors to deal with the federal government and the Prime Minister and make the case. And she was fully supported in a lot of what she did by the mayors from across Canada.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks so much for remembering Hazel today, Bob. I appreciate your time.
Well, are we just about out of time?
Yes, unfortunately. I wish we could talk more. Thank you.
Well, just one last statement. She's been courted by all three political parties, but she's always turned them down. She says, I'm just too independent for party politics. I could never stick to the party line. So
absolutely.
That's Hazel for you.
That was Hazel, absolutely. Thank you so much. Bob Shirelli spending time with us today. Former Ottawa mayor, of course, remembering former Mississauga mayor Hazel McCallion, who's passed away at the age of 101. What a life. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Winterlude. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university, so they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And This is the Sean Duhame Trio. Hope you enjoyed.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, light snow, -11. Here's what's making news this hour. Helping Canadians struggling with the high cost of living will be on the agenda today as MPs return to the House of Commons. Last week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised more targeted support that won't add to inflation. Trudeau is also about to launch negotiations with premiers to increase federal health spending. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh plans to call for an emergency debate on the privatization of healthcare. And dozens of people marked the first anniversary of the so-called Freedom Convoy on Sunday by gathering in downtown Ottawa. Bitterly cold weather put a damp on what organizers had planned as a rally and dance party. And Ottawa police say they issued 192 parking tickets for violating no stopping zone restrictions and towed 23 vehicles from downtown streets. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's that time of year we start thinking about Winterlude. The last couple of years certainly have not been the Winterludes we have known from the past. We're looking forward to 2023. We wanted to get connected today with Jantine Craigden. She, of course, is the Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism. Hi, Jantine.
Hi, Sam. How's it going?
Well, it's great because, you know, everything we talk about in terms of winter celebrations in the capital, we're just on the verge of them. Give us a sense of what's happening for Winterlude this year.
Well, the Department of Canadian Heritage has pulled out all the stops to return to in-person programming for Winterlude 2023. There are 3 official locations. Of course, the Rideau Canal Skateway, the Jewel in the Crown, is not yet open for skating. However, if you've seen the forecasted low temperatures, I think that's going to help smooth things over, hopefully soon, before the opening day on Friday. But the other 2 official sites are Spark Street, where the ice carving demonstrations take place. In fact, this coming weekend, the first weekend, is the National Ice Carving Championships. So they have 13 teams representing the provinces and territories, all working to bang out these amazing ice sculptures over the first weekend of Winterlude. And then on the Gatineau side of the river, in Jacques Cartier Park, there's a Snowflake Kingdom. And that's the ice slides, and there's a zip line, and there's all sorts of fun family activities. The ice hog mascots always show up. The mama, papa, numi, numa, so lots of things for kids, performances. And then all over town, really, there's other programming and other fun things, from a powwow at the Canadian Museum of History this weekend. There's the Canadian Culinary Championships. That's amazing, at the Shaw Centre with Chef Brianna Kim from Alice as Ottawa's contestant in this cross-Canada culinary competition. The Ottawa Winter Jazz Festival is this weekend. The triathlon, where people skate, or if skating is not possible, they'll snowshoe, cross-country ski and run. There's even an Indigenous film festival at Lansdowne where they project short films on snow screens. So you'll be watching movies outdoors on a snow screen. That's pretty cool.
Well, this is all feeling very normal, which is really great, Jantine, right? Is that I understand there's about 400 activities in total happening here. So great for, obviously, residents of the capital and the valley, but also great to draw that tourism. And of course, that's where you come in. How do you support, the initiatives that are going on at this time of year and really encourage people to spend those dollars in the capital?
Well, a lot of the marketing that we do is actually not aimed at Ottawans, but of course aimed at people in Montreal or Toronto or other near markets. That's our bread and butter, and being sandwiched in between Canada's two largest cities, population-wise, that definitely helps. One trend that was apparent before the pandemic, but really got exacerbated by the pandemic, is that trend towards last-minute planning, last-minute booking. And again, we benefit from our physical location that people in Montreal or Toronto or nearby can say, oh, the canal just opened, I'm going to book now and get there. Or, oh, I just found out about the Kiwanis bed race on February 18th, or the Big Bang Festival at the NAC on Family Day weekend. I'm going to book Ottawa now. So that definitely does help us. Of course, there's other people who are planners who book well in advance, and we love to see them as well. It's really the uniqueness of the Rideau Canal Skateway, but also the whole Winterlude celebration. The fact that when we're faced with very cold temperatures, we go out and embrace them. We celebrate. We don't hibernate. We dress in layers. We bring hand warmers and foot warmers. We alternate indoor and outdoor activities so that you can extend your stay. All these little tips and tricks we try to share with people so that they can maximize their time while in Ottawa.
Well, it's definitely a highlight for anybody that visits the area. Do you also market into, I'm thinking about communities like Syracuse, even as far as Syracuse and into the States, Buffalo, and try to attract people from the United States?
Yeah, well, definitely from our social media point of view, our marketing through social media is more broad-based and is less geographically focused than our display ads and things like that. But yes, we definitely have messages for our American visitors, and really through travel trade, our friends that work with tour operators and whatnot. There are people still, lower numbers than in previous years, pre-pandemic years, but there are still people that travel to Ottawa, not just for Winterlude, but for the Canadian Tulip Festival, or in the summer from the UK or France or Mexico or China or Japan. And we do work with those tour operators to keep Ottawa top of mind, to put together compelling itineraries so that people in those countries would want to come and see how people in Ottawa live. And that's really why you travel, right? To see how other people live and how they embrace winter, or the tulips in the spring, or the wonderful outdoor activities we have in the summer as well.
And Gentine, we've seen two, at least that I know of, two reviews in terms of us as a travel destination. One glowing, come here. I think it was CNN said,
CNN
come.
Travel.
And then somebody else came out and said, oh no, it's really boring there. How do you sort of deal with those reviews and make sure that people know we're not boring here?
Yeah. Well, the one that called us overrated, we were like number 60 on the worldwide list of overrated cities. So that's kind of like a backhanded thing. It's like we weren't number one overrated, we were number 60.
Right.
So that's kind of a list where you want to be down at the bottom. And for CNN Travel, being the only Canadian destination earmarked as the place to travel in 2023, that was definitely a pick-me-up. There's also been other stuff in the news. I mean, look at the sale of the Ottawa Senators and Ryan Reynolds' interest. That kind of publicity, that kind of buzz, that kind of passion is great to see, and we're all about that. There's been openings of things like Escape Manor opened a new location on Elgin Street. Its grand opening is this week. That's exciting. New exhibitions at the galleries and museums, that brings people in. The one that's at the Canadian Museum of History now on Canadian TV shows from our childhood. It's called From Pepino to Paw Patrol. Television of our childhoods. That's a fascinating exhibition that I think every Canadian should see, because it brings back memories of your childhood. So we've got such a great collection of attractions here in Ottawa. Indoor, outdoor, family-oriented, food and drink, the craft beer scene, the culinary scene. There's really a lot of compelling reasons to come to Ottawa now.
For sure. And I'm big on the staycation, Gentine. I was on the Quebec side this weekend, but it's still, in terms of really visiting this area, sometimes when we're, the hustle and bustle of the everyday, you forget about the beauty, in our own region.
Exactly. And the other thing is that we're all ambassadors for our city. So we all play a role in the marketing of the city, in the reputation of the city. What are we sharing on our social media feeds? What are we sharing with our friends, relatives, and coworkers and colleagues from other cities? We get to tell the story of Ottawa, and the story of Ottawa could be snowshoeing on the Kitchissippi Winter Trail or the Rideau Winter Trail. Like, even if the Rideau Canal Skateway is not open for skating, we've got amazing outdoor rinks in our parks, in our city parks. Not many cities around the world have 200, and I think we're up over 230 publicly maintained skating rinks in public parks. That's kind of a fun story to share with your relatives in India or or Germany. They might not be able to picture that in their minds. Not to mention that it's really just fun to go skating in your park or to go walking on the winter trails. Like, it's just, we're blessed and lucky to have a lot of these resources. It's easy to complain about things, and there are definitely things that need to be improved in Ottawa, but every once in a while you should take the chance to take a deep breath and celebrate what we do have and work to make that even better.
Well, I'm even thinking about, thinking forward to when that Senator's rink is downtown and how that will even change something like Winterlude. I'm sure people are already, the people that make these things happen are already thinking about, a special Winterlude game and, everything that you could do around having that rink downtown.
That's right. And the new public library will be close by as well. Like, there are a lot of big projects in the works that are going to be fun to see come on board. I hesitate to mention the LRT, but like stage 2 of the LRT, being able to get to the airport and get visitors downtown a bit quicker and easier. There are some positives.
And let's talk a little bit about the ice. I know it's not ready yet. How close are we? Do you know, Jantine?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. I wish I had a direct line, like an emergency phone I could pick up and call the NCC, the National Capital Commission, who maintain the ice. I know that they're working with Carleton University and professors there to study the science of ice and develop ways so that the season could be extended, or that to make it take less, not quite as long to freeze, because they don't open it. You and I could probably go skating today on this skateway, but they don't open it to the public until it's at least 30 centimeters thick or a foot thick. And that's because so many people come out. Safety is of the primary importance. So we've got to be patient until it's safe for all of us to go out skating, because as soon as they open it, we will all go out.
Exactly.
But that's what we're waiting for. So it makes us enjoy it even more when we've had to wait a little bit longer.
So you can do what I'll probably do this weekend is pull my daughter's skates out, make sure they're nice and sharp, ready to go for when the time is right, and
maybe a bit of stretching.
Exactly. Oh, Lord knows,
I those muscles you don't know you have when you go skating for the first time.
Well, I turned 52 today, Jantine. So trust me, I need to do all of the stretching today. Jantine Van Cregden joining us today, Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism, of course, talking about beautiful Winterlude. Always a pleasure to get caught up. I think the next time we'll be chatting is about spring activities, Jantine.
Can't wait.
Look forward to it.
All right.
Take care.
Talk to you later. Bye.
We're going to be talking a little bit about kidney disease with our friends at the Ottawa Hospital. There's a new online calculator developed by their researchers that can predict a person's risk of developing chronic kidney disease. I want to learn more about that, which is an important conversation today. Between 11 and 11:30, you will definitely want to stay with us as well. We know how incredibly tragic the death of Tyree Nichols is in Memphis. And I really wanted to share how locally that impacts us. What does it mean here in Canada? What does it mean here in the Ottawa region? When we see this kind of tragedy unfold, we wanted to spend some time today with Chief Danny Smythe. He's the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. I want to get his perspective. I know all weekend that he probably worked to figure out how he can talk about what's happened and really apply it, and how we can make some changes maybe to policing here in Canada. Vern White's also going to join us a little bit later. He's the former senator, former Ottawa police chief, And let's put it this way, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. I want to hear from Vern White today. I want to hear what his thoughts are on this tragedy that happened in the United States, because it doesn't matter if it happens in Memphis or if it happens in Toronto or here in Ottawa. These kinds of discussions are so important, and I want to have them today. I hope you stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, prendiamo un café. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we're going to tell you about how you can participate in the City of Ottawa's budget process. Riley Brockington, of course, Ottawa City Councillor, will be joining us on the show. He'll give us all the details on that, and I'm really excited about this because I'm a dog person. I have 2 dogs. We're going to be joined by a local dog trainer who has just written a book called Brain Games for Your Dog. We'll tell you how you can help stimulate your dog. All that and more on Monday's Daytime.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
There's so many different tools to use now when it comes to healthcare. We wanted to get caught up today with Dr. Manish Sood, a physician and scientist with the chair of prevention of kidney disease at the Ottawa Hospital. We wanted to get chatting with Dr. Sood today. Hello, doctor.
Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Well, I'm fascinated by this because I understand there's a new online calculator developed, I'm assuming by your team, that can predict a person's risk of developing chronic kidney disease. Walk me through this a little bit, Dr. Sood.
Sure. You know, I'm a practicing kidney physician, and from a practical perspective, I see patients, all the time, and they come in, and the first thing they say to me is, I have kidney disease. They're surprised, and then they say it's followed often by, I don't have any back pain. And what I realize right there is 95% of patients with chronic kidney disease don't have back pain. It's a silent condition. And the reason people think this is because there's a lack of awareness of chronic kidney disease. And so this is part of the motivation behind our team saying we need to help people understand and learn about chronic kidney disease. And at the same time, we want to develop something where they can do it in the comfort of their home. They can get a chance to learn a little bit more about the condition and empower themselves by using tools like our online calculator to calculate their risk of chronic kidney disease.
And it's so interesting because I think a lot of doctors are nervous when people, are searching Google for what's ailing them, and they rely on that. But using the internet in this way is so incredibly positive because once again, it's a tool of educating the public.
Exactly, and I think when you ask people, and can you imagine the common scenario? Like, you go to see a doctor, tomorrow they tell you something's wrong, you're sick, and what's the first thing you ask? What's this going to affect my life? How long do I have? You want to know information. And I think traditionally doctors have been, maybe there's a huge information difference between patients and doctors where doctors know all the information and patients are left asking questions. These type of tools where you can allow people to go on, calculate their own risk, really empowers them to understand what it means, chance to learn about how to prevent it, and then they can go to their doctor and be informed. It's so much better than the idea of Google MD, which, is you can get misinformation. These are scientifically studied and validated tools made by physicians and scientists for the public. So it's solid information.
So let me ask you, Dr. Sood, when we take this calculator, can you walk us through some of the questions we may be asked?
Yes, of course. And so firstly, the diagnosis of chronic kidney disease is made by a urine test and a blood test. And we recognize, people, if they're not aware of it, they're not going to know the results of their urine and blood tests or even have had them done. So we had to, at a conceptual level, make it very approachable. People didn't have to have background medical knowledge, and we wanted it to be based on things they would know about themselves. So we tried to, when we were developing it, include things like, of course, basics, age and sex, but also lifestyle factors like physical exercise, habits that people may have, like cigarette smoking or alcohol intake, and then chronic illnesses that they would know of if they had, for example, been diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes. And these are the basic questions. You don't require any, medical measurements, for example, or lab tests to participate and find out your risk. Really interesting. When we think about something like alcohol, for instance, sometimes we think about the liver when it comes to that, but should we also be thinking about kidneys as well? Yeah, it's interesting. The connection, you're 100% correct. Of course, it's more commonly associated with liver disease, but alcohol and chronic heavy alcohol intake is associated with weight gain, high blood pressure, diabetes, and all of these things contribute to the kidney conditions. So it's kind of indirect, but it is a recognized risk factor, and it often also goes with not having a healthy lifestyle in general. And when you think about, as you went through for a physician and really that you decided to really spend a lot of your energy and your career in terms of kidney disease, why kidney disease? Yeah, that's a terrific question. And, it's interesting also, I had my own perceptions before I started medical school and everything, and about what was interesting and what was not. And then when you get in there, you are kind of exposed to a whole bunch of different specialties and different things that you would have no idea of. And kidneys for me was one of them. I have a scientific background. Kidney disease has a lot of biochemistry involved in it and physiology. And so I really liked that, and it attracted me to the field. And how do we know? You were mentioning that, back pain, that's how people sort of associate it. But how do we know if we have something sort of going on and maybe to even use the calculator? Yeah. That's so this is the biggest thing. Because it's silent in the majority of people, what you recommend is that people screen for it if they have risk factors. So if you, for example, have been diagnosed with hypertension or diabetes, or as we age, we should be getting screening for chronic kidney disease. This is kind of an easy way where you don't have to go into your doctor and get blood or urine sampling done just to see if you're at risk. And if you see using our calculator you are at risk because it is silent, we also link to patient education. So you can click on a link to the Kidney Foundation of Canada. The website that the calculator on is Project Big Life, and it gives all kinds of descriptions and information of what this means and when you should go talk to your doctor about it to get further testing.
Has an online calculator ever been developed before? Or is this a first of its kind?
This is a first of its kind for chronic kidney disease. There are, on the website that hosts this, a couple of other calculators, and it's Project Big Life. It has calculators for your lifespan and cardiac disease. So well-known things that people are often very interested in, but this is the first of its kind directed at patients to calculate your risk of chronic kidney disease. And people don't realize this, but like 13% of Canadians, adult Canadians, are affected by chronic kidney disease.
Oh, well, that's higher. I mean, I had no sort of sense of it, but it's definitely higher than I thought it would have been, for sure.
It is surprising.
Because we don't talk about that very much, you know. Well, I guess that's why you're joining me today.
Yeah.
But we don't really talk about kidney disease.
And you know, we don't. It's not maybe what you could say is one of the top killers, like cancer and heart disease. So maybe people don't fear it as much, but it is a major risk factor, and it's rising throughout the globe in terms of how common it is. And when people do develop chronic kidney disease, what it does for most people is it accelerates their risk of heart disease. They interact together, the heart and kidney. So what it does is you develop chronic kidney disease, and that places you at a much higher risk for having subsequent heart disease. So there's a lot of interlinking going on, a lot of the same risk factors between heart disease and kidney disease. And so really it's all about awareness and prevention.
Well, I learned a lot from you today, Dr. Sood. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day.
You too. Dr. Manish Sood joining us, a physician and scientist, of course, with the Ottawa Hospital. Just another example of that world-class talent and care that we receive there. Appreciate his time very much. When we come back, we're dedicating the next half an hour. So just after the 11 o'clock news, right through to 11:30, we're going to be speaking with Chief Danny Smythe. He's the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. I want to hear his thoughts on this past weekend and past couple of weeks in terms of the tragic death of Tyree Nichols. We're also going to spend time with Vern White, former senator, former Ottawa police chief. I want to get his take on this as well. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this This is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -11 with light snow. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As MPs begin to file into the House of Commons to kickstart the spring sitting of Parliament, the economy is top of mind. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
With a recession on the horizon and the cost of living still through the roof, both the opposition and government say the economy is a top priority as they return to the federal legislature. During his weekend caucus retreat, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said more help for struggling Canadians is something they're looking at for the budget.
The focus that we have, just like we had in the fall, is how can we give targeted supports that won't contribute to higher inflation, but how can we be there for people who need it?
Meanwhile, as the Prime Minister prepares to meet with premiers next week to try and advance talks towards a healthcare funding deal, the NDP is pushing for an emergency debate in the House tonight on the issue of provinces expanding their private options under the public health system. In the lead up to the return of the House, party leaders have been attacking each other in campaign-style speeches, but don't worry, many experts say an election in 2023 is unlikely. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
It's a mostly cloudy day today with scattered flurries here and there this afternoon and evening. A few centimeters possible, 1 to 3 centimeters across Smiths Falls and Ottawa. So not a high impact snowfall. It gets quite cold overnight tonight. We'll drop into the minus teens. Sunny for Tuesday. Cold temperatures really all week long, especially Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. We're going to be in the minus 20 to minus 30 zone, so dangerous cold on the way for the end of the week. The guaranteed high today, minus 6.
And right now in Ottawa, minus 11 feels like minus 16. In Smiths Falls, it feels like minus 13. City News time is 11:02. A study based on data from 42 published papers suggests the pandemic may have had a negative impact on school-age children's learning progress. The researchers are suggesting a deficit of about 1/3 of a school year's worth of learning. They also found that math was more affected than reading skills, and the available data suggests students experienced larger learning deficits in middle-income countries compared to high-income countries. The deadline for the completion of a mega deal in the country's telecom sector has been extended to the middle of the month. Rogers and Shaw and Quebecer say they're allowing Industry Canada more time to complete its review and final say on the $25 billion proposal. City News senior business editor Mike Eppel reports.
Tomorrow's tentative deadline to close the Rogers and Shaw mega deal with a spin-off of Freedom Mobile to Quebecor has now been extended to February 17th. The deal is currently being looked at by Industry Canada, and Federal Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne has said that he is in no rush to give his final go, no-go decision, saying that he wants to ensure that commitments made by Quebecor's Videotron to bring down wireless prices outside of the home province of Quebec are enforceable. In extending the deadline, the three companies say they remain committed to the deal, which has faced numerous obstacles and delays and has been in the works for nearly 2 years. Most recently, the Federal Court of Appeals dismissed the Competition Bureau's challenge to the Competition Tribunal's approval of the deal. Rogers is the parent of this radio station. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for spending time with us on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. Well, we know the tragedy that unfolded on January the 10th and the death of Tyree Nichols in Memphis. And it doesn't matter, and I've said this, a couple times today, it doesn't matter where that tragedy took place. We wanted to address it and see if there needs to be changes in policing here in Canada. We wanted to spend some time today with Chief Danny Smythe. Hi, Chief.
Good morning.
Chief, of course, is the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, also the chief in Winnipeg. Have you watched the tragic video, Chief, of the death of Tyree Nichols?
I certainly did. I watched it on Friday in horror. I'm sure as many people did around the country and around the United States.
From your perspective as a chief, what did you see?
Well, the first and foremost, there is no room for conduct like that in policing anywhere in the world, frankly. And I think it was important for police leaders, both here in Canada and across the United States, to get out and denounce that. And I think you saw many chiefs do that throughout Canada and the United States. So I think that was important just to set the tone. I think it was important that you see swift accountability. And I think Chief Davies, in this case in Memphis, moved pretty quickly to both fire those officers, and now, as we've seen, they've been charged criminally with second-degree homicide or murder.
Chief, when you see, the coverage that happened this weekend and you see the pictures of them all in their police uniforms and then quickly replaced by their mugshots, Tyree Nichols' mom spoke about this, the disgrace it brought amongst their family as well. And for a mom who's just lost her son in such an incredibly tragic way to be thinking about the disgrace of their families as well. I know people refer to the police, sometimes as a family and all of that verbiage that's used around policing. When you saw those visuals, how hard is that to see, knowing that this young man lost his life at the hands of people that really were supposed to protect him?
Well, I think Tyree's mother was pretty measured in her comments, but certainly I recall her saying just that those officers themselves had ruined their own families. I think one of the things, the takeaways here is when things like that happen, it really erodes trust and confidence in the police. I think Memphis in particular will have to do some real heavy lifting to start to repair that. But beyond that, when we see events like that, it doesn't matter where it happens. Our world is so small now because of things like the internet and the way news travels. It can't help but erode trust and confidence in policing throughout the country. And in Canada, we're no different. I was at an event last night, one of the inaugural events for Black History Month, and what alarms people is they see this happen in a place like Memphis, which is a long way away from many of the cities in Canada, but they wonder, can that happen here? And those become the challenges for policing organizations and leaders. Is it really chips away at trust and confidence. Well,
and it has happened here. I mean, we've seen horrific situations where, especially here, in the Ottawa area, we remember very closely Abdi Abi, who passed away after an altercation with police, and we know that the issues that we talk about a lot, whether it be tasering or body cameras or all of these tools that are supposed to be sort of used to de-escalate things, and is this a training issue? Because when I look and I see that this young man, 29 years old, his mom says he weighed 150 pounds. Those officers at least weighed between 180 and 220 each, just from my own visual on them. How does 1,000 pounds of police officers not be able to just arrest a 150-pound man?
Well, I'm not certain what it is they were arresting him for. There were a couple of things that struck me, and I don't think it's so much a training issue. I think, particularly here in Canada, our training is based on some pretty sound foundations. A couple of things that I saw there that I still need to learn more about is quickly we saw the chief disband this Scorpion unit, which is kind of a acronym, I guess, for an anti-crime unit. Don't see those kind of units deployed too often in policing anymore. They're a difficult unit to manage. And the thing that struck me from what I saw of the video, I didn't see a lot of supervision there. And that's one of the challenges when you have a unit that's kind of a freewheeling anti-crime unit. I didn't see enough supervision on the road there.
Mm-hmm.
I watched over a half an hour of that footage and really struggled to recognize somebody that would have been in a supervisory position. So those were just two things that kind of struck me.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny that you say that, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Where's the sergeant who's sort of saying, okay, guys, let's take a break, and from this, let's step away for a minute. He's obviously injured. Let's figure things out. A couple of years ago, Trevor Noah, of course, known as a TV personality, comedian, way before this incident, had this to say.
We're told time and time again that these incidents that Black Americans are experiencing are because of bad apples, right? There are bad apples in these police departments who are doing these things. They use chokeholds that are not allowed. They use excessive force. They're violent in their words and their actions to the people they're meant to be protecting and serving. These are bad apples. We've got to root them out of the force. My question, though, is where are the good apples?
And where are the good apples then, Chief? I mean, you sort of talked about it there. Even the EMT people that arrived looked like this wasn't, a training issue for them either. It looked, both from the police perspective and the EMT, this wasn't a training issue. This was a humanity issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing on that video that I can support in any way. It has no place in policing or emergency response. The one thing that I would say, we saw the worst here, but I can tell you, I'm familiar with the people here in Winnipeg. The vast majority of people are out there every day doing really good work in the community. And again, I alluded to this at the top of my interview. All it takes is an event like this, and it really chips away at trust and confidence throughout policing. And yet, I see the good work that gets done by the majority of the officers, particularly here in Canada. I can't speak as much about the United States, but I certainly belong to the Major City Chiefs Association, and I see some strong leaders there as well.
Mm-hmm. And as the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, Chief Smythe, how do you sort of go from here? Do you bring this issue up at the Chiefs table to have a bigger discussion about this?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Someone else has lots to say, I see.
Here in the background.
Yeah, it's all
Can
good.
you say that again?
I was just asking if you bring up this particular incident to the Chiefs, as the president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, how do you use this as the most tragic teaching moment? But how do you use this to influence any systematic changes that are required in the Canadian policing system?
Well, I think you're right. Communication amongst police leaders throughout Canada and the United States is critical, and that's certainly been going on. Three things that really struck me that I saw quite a bit of in this past week since we learned of this tragedy is you saw police leaders come out and make no uncertain terms denounce what was depicted there in the video and the conduct of those officers. I think swift accountability, in this case, both their firing and the criminal charges is important as well. But I think it's also really important to be in touch in the community and be open to the community and meet with the community, get the feedback, the openness, learn about their concerns, and really try to address those together. Mm-hmm. And that's not something you do after a crisis or when a crisis occurs. It's important that that kind of stuff, the groundwork is already laid there. And most of my colleagues have pretty good relationships in the community so that when bad things happen, they can address it. I think with Chief Davies in Memphis, you saw a fair bit of that in the the lead up to the release of that video. She had been out with the family, out with community leaders, and really doing her best to address the situation. And I think that's probably an appropriate way to do it. It's important to have those relationships ongoing. And I know here in Winnipeg, that's something that I try to do as well.
And you alluded as well, Chief, that, the vast majority of police officers get out there and do that job every day. I have a lot of respect for people that put their lives on the line every day. How do you sort of talk about this as a chief to even your own team about what's happened, so that they don't feel like the world's coming down on all police officers?
Well, of the chiefs that I have been speaking with, it's a balancing act, and certainly the well-being of our own officers is important. They are going to take that on into the street, and they will be subjected to, I'm sure, to some derogatory comments and some critical comments. I've not met anyone rank and file who was supportive of what had occurred in Memphis. So, that part, we all understand, but we also understand that, particularly online, the commentary can be pretty harsh, and we just want to make sure our people understand that they're supported, but there's a balancing act between discipline and accountability as well.
Thank you so much. I know your time is very valuable. Thanks for your time today.
Not at all. Thank you for your interest. Have a good day.
Danny Smythe joining us today, president of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. Appreciate his time. When we come back, Vern White will spend some time with us today. Former senator, former Ottawa police chief, long history of policing in this country. I want to get his take. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Un Chef, prendiamo un café. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
My mother said we had to leave home. The communists were going to take my father away. If my parents were afraid, they didn't show us. But we would never forget our escape from Vietnam. We were lost.
What was your job in Vietnam?
University professor.
We had no home.
Do you have any family in Canada?
No, sir.
Nobody wanted us.
Welcome to Canada.
Canada chose us.
Canadians opened their borders, their homes, and their hearts to more than 100,000 refugees fleeing persecution after the Vietnam War.
We were home.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you for joining us here on City News. I don't know how you spent Friday night, but unfortunately it was such a tragic day for so many as we watched the video of Tyree Nichols and to hear him calling out for his mom. You know, this is the tragedy that unfolded in Memphis on January the 10th. The video was released on Friday. And, you know, you just saw such tragedy in terms of not only for obviously the Nichols family, but this, you know, the city of Memphis and the United States and just the tragedy that we see come out all the time when it comes to these types of stories. When will they stop is a question so many have asked. We wanted to spend some time today with Vern White, former senator and former Ottawa police chief. Hello, Vern.
Hey, how are you, Sam?
Good. Vern, did you watch the videos?
Yeah, shocking, eh? It was Saturday morning when I saw it, but yeah, pretty shocking. It was hard to believe that modern day policing in any place in the world delivered that.
Mm-hmm. Because when I was watching particularly the video that's coming from the street cam at the corner there, if you were to sort of take away the police vehicles and take away any sort of visual that indicated there was an officer wearing a uniform, that looked like a gang attack to me.
You know what? Exactly what I said to my wife. I said, when you watch it, and she refused to watch it, by the way. When you watch it, it looks like a gang. If you saw a video of a gang in East LA attacking somebody on the street, that's what you see. And their disassociation with him as a human carries on even to the point where he's, sitting on the ground, obviously in extreme distress. They just almost made no connection with this being a human being when you watch it.
And obviously the visuals are very, very hard to watch. I found the audio very difficult as well from the perspective of the language that they were using. Obviously the brutality in terms of what they did with their feet and their fists and the batons and all of that, absolutely atrocious. But the language they were using, please tell me, Vern, that isn't the language we're using in policing.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, no policing I've been involved in. Like I said, it's almost like they don't look at him as a human as they're dealing with him, the way they engage him, the way they talk to him, the way they pursue him. I mean, it was really what became prey for them. It's overwhelming to watch. The police chief of Memphis deserves credit for demanding that it be released. And she said that, that what you're about to see might be the most disturbing thing some of you have ever seen. And I thought maybe she was overzealous in her comments until I watched, because and it goes on for so long. It's shocking. Not one of them stopped and said, okay, not one of them said, this is enough. What are we doing? Nobody does anything other than continue this brutal attack on a human being, knowing full well they're all wearing, or some are wearing, body cameras. I can't figure it out.
Well, and it's a really good point, because I think, then when they've sort of beat him and they prop him up against the car, which is a whole other tragic thing to even see the way they treated him and dragged him over to this car, is the justification they're trying to justify. Well, he did this to me and he ran this way and he did this and he did that. So I've asked this question a little bit earlier today. I'd love to ask you, you've been in positions like this, Vern, where, you've been policing in very tragic circumstances as well, very challenging places in Canada as well, up north and that type of thing. Let me ask you, do you think there was some ego involved? The fact that this young man, 150 pounds, got away on these police officers, do you think by the time that they got him and they caught him, that their ego, that the I hate to use the word, but testosterone just overcame them?
I don't, you know what, it's funny because I was asked in an email or on LinkedIn by somebody the same question, but they're treating them like that the minute they pull them out of the car. I mean, for sure, they're grumpy when he gets away and runs. But their behavior before he got away and ran that distance was no bad. It wasn't the way you treat human beings either. It was a pack mentality. It really was like watching something from Animal Kingdom, how they treat this human, and they just rip them apart. And not one. I'm always shocked by. I mean, I understand how that pack mentality works, but I'm always shocked by fully trained police officers. These folks are on a specialized unit, hopefully with specialized training, that not one of them reached in and put a hand out to stop somebody from kicking, punching, tasering, baton. Not one person in that group did that. And not only the 5, I think a few others show up later while it's continued. They don't do anything. It's like nobody even reaches down to check on this man laying against a car who's obviously been beat at that point almost to death, and nobody even does that. Like it's inhumane the way they treat this man.
So talk to me about the dynamics between police officers, because, you know, we often hear, you know, the term, you know, the policing family and how they sort of protect one another. You know, if let's say the 5 of them were in that situation and one of them says, hey guys, you know, like step back, like, you know, like let's take a pause here. This has gone badly, you know, that kind of thing. What is the dynamic there? I mean, you know, does it change the dynamic of that group?
I don't think so. Look, I've been in lots of situations when you're making an arrest and you know, somebody comes running up to the car and thinks something's happening that really isn't, and you know they're about to jump into what they think is an aggressive situation, and others will say, oh, hold on, look, everything's good. But none of them try that, right? I mean, even if you suggest that maybe that person will be ostracized or worried about their relationship, it doesn't matter. None of them give any indication that that's what they're going to do. None of them reach in. None of them do anything to help them afterwards. None of them put a hand out saying, look, okay, I don't think a baton against this guy needs to be done. What are you doing with a taser? Like it goes on in the pepper spray. And even their use of pepper spray, capsicum spray, they're spraying their own officers. At one point, you see an officer stagger out of the group, coughing and choking. Like it's hard to watch at many levels, but it's hard to watch and try to figure out what they actually thought they were doing, because I don't think they gave any thought to it. Like it looked like they were just out to destroy this human, and they were successful, I'm afraid. But it's something I think hopefully every police officer in the country in Canada looks at that and says, that won't be me, and that won't be the people I work with. I won't allow it, and that's all you can hope, right?
We only have about a minute, Vern, but when you hear him calling out for his mom, and you hear all of that, and I'm sure, you know, once again, as you know, Vern, I'm the farthest thing from a police officer, but hearing all of that, is that hard to hear for you?
Oh, it's difficult to hear. It's difficult to watch. It's difficult to. I mean, look, I read about it before I watched it. Probably read 5 or maybe even 8 articles about, you know, what was expected to be seen. It's all very difficult, and even as difficult as it was reading about it, when you watch it and listen to these people as they're treating this other human, it's overwhelming, actually.
Vern, I wish it was a better topic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, best to you and your daughter. Eh?
Thank you so much, Vern. I appreciate that. Former senator and former Ottawa police chief, served with the RCMP, you know, served many, many years up north. I appreciate his take today. Listen, it was it's a very, very tragic outcome, and you know, Tyree Nichols and his death and his mom, and you know, thinking about the city of Memphis, and hopefully there's some healing there for them. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, -11 feels like -13. In Smiths Falls, it is -10. And here's what's making news this hour. The first player in the NHL history to score more than 50 goals in a single season has died. Hockey Hall of Famer Bobby Hall was 84. Over a pro career that spanned 23 years, Hall played for the NHL's Chicago Blackhawks and Hartford Whalers, as well as the World Hockey Association's Winnipeg Jets. He and Chicago teammate Stan Mikita helped popularize the curved hockey stick blade in the NHL. A new year in federal politics kicks off today as MPs head back to the House of Commons to take their seats for the first session this year. The economy will be top of mind for parliamentarians, with the Prime Minister already saying his government will be focused on the cost of living and more targeted supports in advance of an expected economic slowdown. And only a few hundred people gathered in front of Parliament Hill on Saturday. And fewer showed up yesterday to mark the first year anniversary of the so-called Freedom Convoy. Ottawa police say a small convoy arrived Sunday, but were quickly redirected out of the city. Police and bylaw officers were out and about in the core. Almost 200 tickets were issued and more than 5 dozen provincial offence notices were handed out. 2 people were arrested and a couple dozen vehicles were towed. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, the 1-year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy, it was this time last year that so many people were in Ottawa, occupying that Wellington Street area, the Byward Market, such a challenging time in our city. Alex Nev joins us today, Senior Fellow, Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, University of Ottawa, and Commissioner of Ottawa People's Commission. Hi, Alex.
Good morning.
Alex, it's hard to believe that a year has passed and you know, there's been so much different fallout from the so-called Freedom Convoy. Walk me through, first of all, why the Ottawa People's Commission was established.
Well, the Ottawa People's Commission, as its name suggests, is very much of the people. It's a community-generated initiative, which came out of the networks and the communication between members of the community during the convoy, when people had come together to cope, to provide protection to each other, to make sure that vulnerable people were getting meals. And after the convoy was over, those conversations kept going, and people realized this was not over for them, that a lot of people were still feeling traumatized by what had happened, that people were feeling frustrated that the kinds of answers and accountability they wanted just wasn't on offer, and that the official processes like the Rouleau inquiry, the parliamentary committee, the City of Ottawa's Auditor General review were not offering any space for a community perspective. And so they decided if what's on offer isn't providing what is needed, let's create something. And that led to the birth of the People's Commission.
And the objective of this report, what are you hoping at the end of the day to accomplish, Alex?
I think there's broadly two main objectives. The first is to make sure that that community perspective is heard. And the first report that we've issued today is very much in that vein. It's called What We Heard, and it's a compilation giving a good overview of the more than 200 submissions and testimonies that we heard from people. And we think it's very important to have that out there in the public domain because it gets overlooked, we think, too much. Secondly, and our follow-up report will do this in much more detail, we of course do want this to be a vehicle for change. So we are doing a policy analysis based on what we've heard, and then from that we will be formulating a set of recommendations going to all three levels of government. This isn't only about what happened at City Hall. This is, yes, about municipal government, but it's also about provincial and federal, and it's about police at all three of those levels as well. So we'll have recommendations based on that community experience for how things need to change to avoid this happening again in the future.
How were you funded, Alex?
It's all private. So we've had some people who have given generous donations, which really made it possible to get things kickstarted. We have incredible support from the Centretown Community Health Centre. The Commission is a project of the Community Health Centre. And then ordinary people have been making donations. There's a possibility to make donations through the Commission's website. And people from across the city have been doing so because I think it really resonated with them, the fact that so many people felt they had not been heard, that they didn't matter, that they'd been abandoned, and here was an initiative that was going to change that. So we've been getting support from just ordinary people across the city.
Mm-hmm. And the website's very clearly laid out. I will say it's very easy to sort of follow. You've got it broken down into a number of components. Under the section of what we heard is in bold letters, it was an occupation. And I think it was only... once again, I could be wrong by a few days, but I feel like it was only a couple of weeks in we started using that terminology in terms of occupation. How important is language here, Alex?
It is very important, and you're quite right. Many people started using the word quite early on. I did. And because I think intuitively, if you were living this in any way, that seemed to capture it. But when we got to writing the report, we realized we need to very specifically turn our mind to that. Our very name includes the word occupation. We're the Ottawa People's Commission on the Convoy Occupation. But we wanted to, again, based on what we were hearing from community members, very deliberately grapple with that word. What does it word? It's a very significant, for I think a lot of people, it's a highly charged word. For Indigenous peoples, for instance, their lands have long been occupied. For Palestinians, there's implications around the word occupation in the reality they face in the Middle East. It's not a casual word, and we did spend some time looking at legal definitions of the word, dictionary, common usage of meanings of the word, and have agreed that this is the most apt term. That doesn't mean that there weren't protests happening as part of the occupation. It's not that we've thrown the notion of protest out the window, but that the overarching concept of what played out for those 3.5 weeks was an occupation.
And Alex, who do you want to read this report? Obviously, obvious people, you think about politicians and that type of thing, but I think about this almost as a history not repeating itself situation with the timeline you have here. Who do you want to see review this?
Well, certainly it's very important for us that the people of downtown Ottawa, the 23,000 people, I think people don't understand how many people live in these impacted neighborhoods. That's a small city. 23,000 people live in the Centertown and other neighborhoods that were impacted. So first and foremost, this is for them because this is what they told us. Certainly more broadly, I think the degree to which everyone in the city of Ottawa could take some time to look what we've captured here, because I think that there's not a full appreciation on the part of other residents of the city as to how traumatic, how pervasive, how violent, how upsetting and disruptive this was for their fellow Ottawans. And then beyond Ottawa as well, I'm hoping that across the country, I mean, obviously the phenomena of the convoy captured national attention. It was back in the news very much throughout the fall while the Rouleau inquiry was underway. But throughout all of that, again, this appreciation of what was really happening at community level just always seemed to not be in the frame, not getting the coverage. And thus, I think a lot of Canadians think it wasn't that bad. Sure, it's inconvenient. Oh, those horns must have been loud. But hey, it's the capital, and that comes with being a capital city. People should just suck it up and get on with life. Mm-hmm. And I think this report will hopefully help other Canadians understand this was something very different. We're not just talking about a loud, angry, confrontational protest, all of which is good. I'm a human rights lawyer. I support that kind of protest all the time. People need to see and understand this wasn't at all in that ballpark.
Alex, is this organization around in a decade from now? Will you need to be?
Well, we certainly won't be in terms of how we're currently set up and funded. We have, as I say, we are getting support, but we're minimally funded. There's an immense amount of volunteer work, lots of pro bono contributions that have been going into making this possible. Our mandate is to simply get these two reports out the door. So the first report is out today. The second report with more analysis and recommendations will be out in late March. And then really the commission itself will be disbanded. Whether at that point in time there's become impetus for it to carry forward in some different way, different format, I guess that's an open question right now. I think certainly what we're seeing through our work is we aren't only talking about, here's the problematic policing decisions that were or were not made in the month of February 2022. What we're really shining the light on is things that are deeper, more structural. We're uncovering, I think, the extent to which there's a real human rights failure at city level in terms of understanding what the needs and thus what the response to a community should be. So there is a lot of long-term work here. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the People's Commission that carries that forward, but there certainly will be work that needs to be done.
Have you heard from the mayor's office, for instance? Have you heard from any politicians in terms of your work so far? Not yet. However, I would say that the city councillor for Centertown, Ariel Troster, was at our press conference this morning, which we very much welcomed, and we had a good engagement with her. She was very responsive, and I can certainly see that in Ariel, much like was the case during the convoy with Ariel's predecessor, Catherine McKenney, that there is, at least in that part of the political environment, someone who gets it and someone who's going to be a champion going forward. But there's a lot of other corners of all three levels of government where I think there's a lot of work ahead to make sure that this message about the need to put human rights at the forefront in terms of understanding a community's needs and thus responding to something like the convoy, there's still a lot of progress needed. Mm-hmm. Alex, really appreciate your time. I learned a lot about your work. Thank you.
Thanks for the conversation.
Alex Neve joining us today, Senior Fellow, Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, University of Ottawa, and also a Commissioner of Ottawa People's Commission. Appreciate his time very much. I don't know about you, but I'm in the mood to talk a little hockey. Well, you know the best guy to do that with, Steve Warren. Did you know Steve Warren has a show on City News? Yes, he does. We're going to tell you all about it. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, prendiamo un café. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we're going to tell you about how you can participate in the City of Ottawa's budget process. Riley Brockington, of course, Ottawa City Councillor, will be joining us on the show. He'll give us all the details on that, and I'm really excited about this because I'm a dog person. I have 2 dogs. We're going to be joined by a local dog trainer who has just written a book called Brain Games for Your Dog. We'll tell you how you can help stimulate your dog. All that and more on Monday's Daytime.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking while their porridge began.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I love talking about our Ottawa Senators on a day like today after a great weekend. We're getting caught up today with Steve Warren, of course, from the Steve Warren Sports Show here on City News. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Sam.
What a great weekend for the Ottawa Senators, of course. Toronto, Montreal. Walk us through the weekend.
Well, I guess it's a case of, will the real Senators please stand up? Because you look at them, they just had a 3-0 weekend. It was terrific. But are they the team that just lost by a combined 9-2 against Pittsburgh and Winnipeg 10 days ago? Or are they the team that just went 3-0, outscoring the opposition by 13-3? And I think the answer is they're both of those things. But certainly these last 3 games were just excellent, very entertaining, and the team just looks so much more structured right now. But we all know that, that those have been fleeting, those moments. We felt this way before about the Sens, and there's a reason they've been 500 playing at a 500 clip for the last month and a half. They got to 500 on December 17th, and now they're about to enter the All-Star break, still at 500. So exciting 3 games for sure, Sam, but they continue to be consistently inconsistent.
Right. And of course, those injuries haven't helped at all, Steve.
No, I think the fact that Josh Norris is out for the year, that's obviously a bad thing. That's a guy that was on pace for over 40 goals, only 3 games back, and gets injured again with the same shoulder problem. So he's headed for shoulder surgery. Cam Talbot, he started the year on the DL, and he's back there again. We're not sure exactly what his status is. He suffered a lower body injury, and he's going to be out until after the All-Star break. We're not sure how things stand there. The one upside of the Norris injury, the silver lining, I suppose, is that Ridley Gregg is up from the minors, and, man, he's looked really good in the 3 games that he's been in. They've won all 3 of them. So, there's some injuries to be concerned about. Arhem Zook still out of the lineup. So, hopefully everybody with the exception of Norris, obviously, everybody uses the All-Star break to get healthy.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And Steve, let me ask you this. How close of an eye would Coach DJ Smith keep on Belleville in terms of talent in case he had to pull somebody up?
Oh, I think there's, DJ Smith may not be the guy, but, certainly the organization is always keeping an eye on what's going on down in Belleville. And, Pierre Dorion will be watching that. I'm sure they're in close contact communications all the time with what Troy Mann is thinking about things, who's ready for the NHL. So absolutely. I think, while DJ Smith is a busy guy, I don't know that he has a chance to watch a lot of Belleville games. I know when Ridley Gregg came up, he said he had an opportunity to see him on TV a little bit, but that's more the job for Pierre Dorion and Troy Mann and Ryan Bonus. So, they got to keep a very close eye on what's happening in Belleville.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, when you think about sort of the time that DJ Smith has come through, we've spoke about DJ a few times, and it's like, I don't know if he's going to make the week. He seems to be breathing a bit easier probably today.
Well, wins are always going to, because I think at the end of the day, fans don't really care who the coach is so long as the team is winning. So if you put together a 3-game win streak, that certainly cools the hot seat. I still, I'm skeptical at this stage of the game. Like I say, it's been since December 17th. They got to 500, and they're still at 500. So I guess I'm in a mode of fool me once. So I think, for now, absolutely. I think that people talk less about coaching changes when things are going well. And now they've got a game in Montreal on Tuesday night, and that'll do it for any sort of momentum they have, any sort of heater that they're on right now. Chances are that's all going to be going by the wayside because they'll have an 11-day layoff.
And what does that do to a team, Steve? That it's on a little bit of a rush right now. That 11 days. What will that do you think to them?
It's hard to predict. You never know. It's always that rest versus rust thing that everybody talks about. There's some certain guys who absolutely would love to get physically right. Nobody is 100% at this time of the year. I think that, again, it's hard to predict. You'd like when you're going well, I think ideally, assuming things go well in Montreal, you have a 4-game win streak, you want to keep playing. Mm-hmm. But you can never predict these things. It's really interesting to have in the middle of the season in a non-Olympic year where you have 11 days off like this. It's long. It just happens to be this way for the Sens. Every team gets a break in their schedule, and the Sens just happen to butt up against the All-Star break. So I think generally it's a positive because it is a grind. We all love hockey, and it looks like the funnest job in the world. But make no mistake, mentally and physically, it is a grind. So it's going to be a nice opportunity for them to sort of gather themselves and get ready for the final 35 games. Give us a bit of a sense of the All-Star game and All-Star time. What do we expect? Well, Brady Tkachuk is the name here from Ottawa. He'll represent the Sens, and he's going to be off to Florida. And I'm sure he and his brother are going to have a fantastic time because Matthew lives now as a member of the Panthers. And I'm sure they're going to golf their faces off during the break. They'll be playing on a line together in the All-Star game in all likelihood. And it's a standard 3-on-3 format. And I guess they play 3 games each division. And I'm not a huge fan of the All-Star weekend, I'll be honest, Sam. Mm-hmm. It's it's fun. but it's a little silly at the same time. Nobody takes it too seriously. It's meant to be fun, and certainly, for any team that hosts, as we saw here in Ottawa, probably a decade ago now, it is a lot of fun when it is in your town.
For sure. Does Pierre Dorion have a few sleepless nights thinking someone's coming back injured like a Brady?
Oh, I don't think so. Just because, every once in a while you might extend yourself in the 3-on-3 format, but I can't think of anybody that's been dinged up at the All-Star game. It's a classic no-hitter in that, there's absolutely no physicality in the game. It's just back and forth hockey. And I guess if you were ever going to deal with an injury, it might be because guys got a little too competitive and just overtaxing themselves, because we all know in a 3-on-3 format, it's sometimes hard to get off the ice, and you end up going back and forth a lot longer than you might have. But generally speaking, there are rarely any injuries at the All-Star game. And that's the difference, I guess, when it's an Olympic year, right? I know a lot of owners kind of hold their breath through that time. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think Sens fans would go back to, I believe it was 2006, when the Sens, in my opinion, had the best roster in their history. And Dominik Hasek went to the Olympics. And I'm bringing up a terrible memory for Sens fans, but Dominik Hasek went to represent the Czech Republic at the Olympics in 2006. And I guess dinged himself up, and Hasek was an outstanding goaltender still at that point, and he was out pretty much for the rest of the season that year. At least wasn't available at playoff time, and that might have made all the difference. And so it's certainly when Sens fans look back at the Olympics, that's probably the one memory that they have, and it's not a particularly good one. Right. We're just so excited, Steve, that you're here, of course, on City News with the Steve Warren Sports Show. We love that so much. Saturdays, 9 o'clock in the morning, right after An Hour to Give, right after my show. You're right in there talking about all things sports. Are you having fun? Oh, yeah, having a great time. Absolutely. Greg Kennedy, the coach, as I affectionately have labeled him, because he's been a longtime coach in the area for probably, 2-3 decades now. But, we always have great hockey conversations, reacting to what's going on with the Ottawa Senators. We get interviews and some trivia in there as well. So, yeah, we're having a blast with it, and hope people are enjoying it so far. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I urge you to do so. Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate it and everything you do for our show here on Mondays as well. Steve Warren, always a great time to get caught up. Thanks, Sam. Have a great day. Thank you. Steve Warren joining us from the Steve Warren Sports Show here on City News. And, of course, longtime broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast. He just does it all. We appreciate it very much. We're getting ready for lunch. Today, we've invited two gentlemen to the table. David Thompson, former mayor of Deep River, will share some of his thoughts today on some of the top news topics of the day. And Larry Hill's going to join us, former deputy police chief with the Ottawa Police Service. We're going to be talking about lots of different things today. We're going to be talking, of course, about the so-called Freedom Convoy, that anniversary that went by. It was really much ado about nothing, which we're going to talk a little bit about their perspectives on that. We're also going to talk about Canadian policing and in wake of the tragedy that happened in Memphis. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the budget. We know that it's a very busy week for Ottawa City Council this week. We're going to get a sense of what David and Larry are thinking about that's going to happen at that council table. We hope that you stay with us for lunch on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Here we go.
going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoyed.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, -11 with light snow. In Smiths Falls, it is -10. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The House of Commons has begun its first proceedings of 2023. As the fall sitting of Parliament is now underway, MPs have the economy, inflation and healthcare on their minds. City News Parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
The rising cost of living and an expected recession are front and center. All eyes are on the budget, with the government hinting at more targeted inflation supports for struggling Canadians. The opposition Conservatives have hammered the feds on spending, while the finance minister looks at more belt tightening. Now, a pending healthcare funding deal with the provinces is also on the horizon, with a first minister's meeting set for next week. The NDP is requesting an emergency debate today to address some provinces expanding private options under the public health system. Now, Government House Leader Mark Holland says another issue for this spring is changes to the gun ban legislation, which has been criticized for going too far.
Weapons that are, used to do mass killings off the streets, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't interfere with those that have hunting as a way of life and a passion.
Also, be on the lookout for new legislation to better protect air passengers after the travel fiasco over the holidays. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Mostly cloudy with flurries for the afternoon and evening. Sunny for Tuesday and sun and cloud Wednesday as well, but a chance of flurries Wednesday and Thursday. We'll have a brief moment Thursday where temperatures aren't too bad, but by Thursday night we're down to the -20s. That's not even factoring in the wind chill. That will just be the base temperatures. Highs around -20 for Friday, and we're looking at Friday night being one of the coldest nights we've seen in such a long time, down to -30 here in Ottawa. For today, the guaranteed high -6.
City News time is 12:02. Regarded as one of the best left wingers in NHL history, the Golden Jet Bobby Hall has died at the age of 84. City News reporter Alex Cicero reports.
The NHL Alumni Association announced the news this morning, and cause of death has not been announced. The Hall of Famer had an illustrious 23-year career playing for the Blackhawks and the Whalers of the NHL before his move to the newly formed WHA in 1972 when the Winnipeg Jets signed him for $1 million. Hull, who is known for that flowing blonde hair and powerful slap shot, was the first NHL player to score 50 goals in a season, doing so in 1961, and he did that with the straight stick blade. Hull and fellow Chicago teammate Stan Mikita would help popularize the curved stick blade years later. Hull was a part of those powerhouse Blackhawks teams in the 60s who won the Cup in 1961. He sits 18th all-time with 610 NHL goals. His son Brett sitting 5th with 741. Alex Cicero, City News.
City News time, 12:03. Winterlude is just around the corner. Starting this Friday, Ottawa and Gatineau will become the stage for activities that showcase Canadian winter culture and traditions. Jansen Van Gretken is the Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism.
All over town, really, there's other programming and other fun things, from a powwow at the Canadian Museum of History this weekend. There's the Canadian Culinary Championships. That's amazing, at the Shaw Centre with Chef Brianna Kim from Alice as Ottawa's contestant in this cross-Canada culinary competition.
There's over 400 activities on the schedule for this year, and Winterlude runs for 3 weeks, starting on Friday, the 3rd of February, to Monday, the 20th. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime, everybody. We like to use this time every day to talk about those top news stories of the day. We're going to be feasting on lots of big subjects today. We've invited to the table David Thompson, who is the former mayor of Deep River. Hello, David.
Hey, Sam, and happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you very much. Aren't you sweet? Aren't you kind? Larry King, I can't believe I just said that. Obviously, I'm getting old, obviously, Larry. Larry Hill is joining us today. Larry Hill, former deputy police chief from the OPS. How are you, Larry?
I'm good. Thank you. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I can't think of two guys I'd rather have lunch with today on my birthday to talk about the big subjects of the day. Larry, let's talk a little bit about the so-called Freedom Convoy. I know there was lots of plans that went into place in terms of the anniversary, which was this past weekend. Do you think all the plans and the tough talk, if you will, from our police chief here in Ottawa made this weekend really much ado about nothing?
I think it certainly contributed to that, yes.
And what do you think, David?
Well, there's a lot of different factors that have changed, Sam. First of all, a lot of the original organizers, like Tamara Leach and Pat King, they've either been jailed or fined or banned from the city. One of the other factors is that the flow of funding to this organization has been pretty much put to an end. And then you also have to think about, well, what's the raise in death for? You know, they came last year around vaccine mandates. So what's the issue this year? If it really is about freedom, then I would suggest that they go to Iran and do some protesting there.
It certainly has been a really interesting time in our city. And Larry, when you think about the fact that even OPS this weekend, I think it was very strategic. I'd love to know your thoughts that OPS were really issuing, this is how many people were trespassing, this is how many people had tickets, provincial offenses, parking tickets, etc. I think they knew that the people of Ottawa would want to know what was happening down there.
Yes, absolutely. It was zero tolerance. It was announced ahead of time, and they followed through on that. But as David was saying, the original convoy / occupation has lost its luster. People see now what it really was. It was less of a protest and more of an oppressive tactic to unseat a government, which very few Canadians want to participate in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to your point, David, about what else is going on in the world, whether it's the tragedy unfolding in Iran, whether it's the tragedy unfolding in Ukraine, there's so many issues that are happening in the world that that people are probably maybe not putting their full attention on, but that are absolute travesties.
And that's absolutely the truth. And let's face it, our police services this time around, there was no way that they were going to be bamboozled this time. They were fully prepared, stronger leadership, clearer lines of communication. So I had zero concerns about an anniversary weekend.
We've talked so much about policing in the last year, Larry, in so many different ways. We saw the tragedy unfold in Memphis, on January the 10th. We only saw the footage, of course, this past Friday when it was released by Memphis police. But, the death of Tyree Nichols, the beating that took place on Friday, the video that came out and his mother's reaction and all of it, the swift action by the chief of police in Memphis in terms of not only firing those officers, but those second-degree murder charges being laid was a really sort of interesting to see how that all unfolded. What does it say about policing here in Canada in your mind, Larry?
Well, Well, there is a spillover effect with news access so easy and so international that we've had our concerns here, we've had our issues here, and so people sort of superimpose what's happening elsewhere on police here, and whether that's fair or not, I'll leave that up to the observer. But I think it is, in my view, fair to constantly be vigilant for the kind of actions that we've seen very recently.
And what are your thoughts, David, in terms of the video? Have you seen the tragic video out of Memphis?
I have watched it, and it's sickening that a human being could do that to another human being. And I don't understand what the thinking process is. And, sometimes when you get in a group and you have some groupthink and maybe clearer heads would have prevailed, but in this case they didn't. Mm-hmm. And it's a very sad reflection on policing.
We know that the Trevor Noah, of course, beloved comedian, TV personality, he came out a couple of years ago, and I think it was in relation to the tragedy that unfolded regarding George Floyd as well. But this is a couple of years old, so keep that in mind. But I think it's still relevant today. And here's what he had to say about policing.
We're told time and time again that these incidents that Black Americans are experiencing are because of bad apples, right? There are bad apples in these police departments who are doing these things. They use chokeholds that are not allowed. They use excessive force. They're violent in their words and their actions to the people they're meant to be protecting and serving. These are bad apples. We've got to root them out of the force. My question, though, is where are the good apples?
And from your perspective, Larry, you held a very important position, former deputy police chief for Ottawa Police Service. When you hear something like that, I mean, I know there's a lot of fantastic police officers, but when we saw that happen on, that video, it was hard to see that there was any good apples there, if you will.
Yeah, there weren't. It's quite obvious there weren't. It was disturbing to watch the police officers not tend to the person that they just injured at all. They just sort of ignored him. And then they walked around trying to come up with ways of justifying their use of force, which thankfully there was a camera that wasn't that was fixed on a pole nearby that people could see objectively what occurred and how long it took for medical response to happen, and the utter denial of that person's. You could see he wasn't struggling; he was moving because he was being hurt whenever he was being beaten, and that is unconscionable.
Mm-hmm. It's just tragic, and I think any parent that watches that, particularly any mom that watches that, and hear him crying out for his mom, it's such a tragic situation, and the loss of life is unconscionable. David, let me take those words from Trevor Noah and apply it not only to the situation that happened in Memphis, but apply it to every day. Apply it to something you see on transit, something you see at a shopping center, something you see at the workplace. Are the good apples still there? When it comes to bullying or hate or this type of tragedy.
I think they're still there, Sam, but there's risks for that. When you inject yourself into a dispute, then you take on a risk. And we've seen here in Ottawa several times where innocent bystanders have tried to do the good thing and end up getting killed themselves. But I think inherently, when you look inside your heart and you see something that is wrong, that you will do something about it. I think by and large, people are good like that, but there are risks in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Larry, I remember hearing a story about you, and I always thought this was an incredible story. It's obviously not, relatable in terms of the fact that it was a violent act, but I understand that you were You were the chief of police in Nepean at the time, and you actually saw something happen in terms of shoplifting, and you intervened as the chief, where it would have been easy to sort of just say, well, I'm the chief and I've got other things to do. How important was it for you to intervene in something even like shoplifting?
Well, I didn't know what it was until the thing kept going, but it started with the person running, and I thought I just got a copy from Tim Hortons there, and I saw these people running, and one person running to meet the band and being pursued by a couple of other people. I thought, well, this is not good, so I investigated. I found the person who was so worn out from running with all this stuff that he had stuffed into pockets that he gave up without any struggle at all, for me anyway. But it's just a reaction, and I would hope that we learn from what happened to Tyree Nichols, in that the reaction should be a positive reaction, not a negative reaction. I'm sure if somebody had spoken to him in a different way at the start of the traffic stop, this wouldn't have spiraled as out of control as it did.
Such a good point, because to your point, it's when you immediately see that kind of aggressiveness from a police officer, you do get nervous. I mean, I think anybody would be nervous, but you think about young black men in America are even more nervous. So it's a very, very important conversation today. We're going to continue the conversation today with Larry Hill, former deputy police chief for the Ottawa Police Service, and David Thompson, former mayor of the beautiful little town of Deep River. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Un Chef, prendiamo un café. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
My husband is a wonderful man and a great father when he's not drinking. I'm so angry he chooses alcohol over us. If he really loved us, he'd stop drinking, right? My counselor suggested I try Al-Anon. I didn't understand why. I'm not the one with the problem, but I'm glad I went. Do you worry about someone's drinking? You are not alone. Al-Anon or Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
What do I like? I like open fires, moonlit nights, chatty letters, rainy days. I like daydreaming. I love this colorful little island of ruby, emerald, and sapphire. Yet often my dark moods come. I'm possessed body and soul by this depression. They say women shouldn't write. Some days I almost give up. But I cannot contain my imagination. I made Anne real. I gave her my love of nature, my love of books, and my childhood dreams. My greatest happiness would be to climb the alpine path and write upon it a woman's humble name.
Lucy Maud Montgomery battled depression, rejection, and sexism to become known around the world for Anne of Green Gables and 19 other novels.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut
tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime on City News. We've invited a couple of people to the table today, and Larry Hill, former Deputy Police Chief with the Ottawa Police Service, has pulled up a chair, and David Thompson is here as well. He's having lunch with us. He's a former mayor of Deep River. We know that obviously there's been lots of talk about policing. We've had our own discussions today about it. We know the RCMP is insisting on using some tactics that are frowned upon by federal politicians. Is it time for some changes, do you think, David?
Absolutely, Sam. And I'm going to preface my remarks by saying that my grandfather, Thompson, was a very proud member of the RCMP. But let's face it, it has not been a couple of good years for the RCMP, beginning with the fiasco in Nova Scotia that resulted in the deaths of 22 people. But here's the issue. It's a question of who's the employer and who's the employee. So the employer is the federal government, and represented by the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendocino. And he wants that chokehold to be banned. And the response from the RCMP Commissioner, Brenda Lucky, is, we'll tell you what's happening operationally, but we're not taking direction on how to do things. And that just seems completely upside down. It's not the employees that set the terms and conditions of employment. It is the employer. And I absolutely think that her employment should be terminated immediately with no severance.
What are your thoughts, Larry, on this? Your perspective is going to be really interesting.
First of all, I agree 100% with David. Great comments. If the board or the federal government, the same governance role, sets policy, if the policy includes the use of force options, which it does, and they say this policy will no longer include chokeholds and there's some issue with tear gas and rubber bullets, then that's the policy now. It is not the federal government or a police services board are not dictating how you use those options, which is an operational issue. They are saying, don't use this, find something else.
Mm-hmm. And David, I think about your time as mayor of Deep River. There was there still the police force with Deep River at that point?
Yes, we continue to have our own private police force, and I was honored to be the chair of the Police Services Commission. And, we had always lively debates about the role of the board versus the role of the police department. I would never tell the chief how to do his job. That's not my role. It's not my expertise. But we do set the rules of engagement, and those need to be followed.
Mm-hmm. And Larry, do you think Commissioner Lucky has sort of, I can't think of another word, but sort of got away with a lot? There seems to be a lot on her record that isn't positive, yet she still holds that position.
Well, it's funny. If I remember correctly, when they were selecting the new or searching for a new commissioner, they wanted that commissioner to institute changes. And I haven't seen a lot of changes happening in her tenure. So I don't know what else they need to do to get those changes made. And what David is suggesting, that perhaps it's time for her to move on, and maybe that should be the thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly going to be interesting to watch what happens with our own policing here. And, and I've said it time and time again, there are incredible police officers that serve this community and this country. And And, I know how hard they all work. These types of situations that we've seen over the last couple of years really does paint, the force in many ways with that brush. But I'm really hoping people realize this just is, this is not every police officer, which is a really important conversation to have as well. Let's shift gifts a little bit and talk, David, about the budget. We know that Ottawa Council is going to be very busy this week, talking a lot about the upcoming budget. Lots on the horizon in terms of how we're going to spend our money. Any advice for Council?
Well, there's both a short term and a longer term. In the short term, Sam, the practicality is time is of the essence. They need to set a budget rate. You have a lot of new councillors, and so their ability to go through the budget in a detailed fashion this time around is really just not going to be available to them, and their decision really is going to be about what's the rate. Is it 2.5? Is it 3? But in the longer term, and I'm very impressed, Sam. I was at the last council meeting on January 25th, I believe. I was very impressed with a number of our new councillors, especially David Hill from Barrhaven. But what we have to do is to kind of go back to first principles. What is the role of municipal government? The thing that happens is that every council brings in new programs and new services, and that just grows and grows and grows because there's never a sunset clause. Rarely do you see evaluation criteria to end these programs, and so it's just like a snowball going down a hill. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We have to go back, say, what is the role of municipal government, and let's do a strategic review of every single program and service to make sure it's accomplishing the goals it was intended to.
Absolutely. Larry, what are your thoughts?
Well, David, that's excellent. And I think our new mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, talked about doing that as well coming into office. So I'm hoping he's going to carry through with that kind of whole city service review. But I think this is the time to invest more heavily and not skimp on our transit system. And I'm talking about buses and LRT, because that's really a core function. Moving people around the city is really a core function, and right now it's not doing very well. And I think if systems have to be upgraded, then work on a 3 to 5 year plan of upgrading all the services and getting prepared for outages as we're going to continue to have in summer or winter.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. And we only have about a minute left, but David, when it's safe to do so, will we see you strap on the skates and zip down the canal?
Well, despite being a very proud Canadian, Sam, I absolutely despise the cold. But I will make an exception. I mean, of the 143 things to do during Winterlude, the one thing I will do, I will put on my skates. I will skate directly to the Beaver Tails outlet. I will get myself a Killaloo sunrise. I will enjoy it. And then I'll get my butt right back home in front of the fireplace.
Sounds exactly like my plan. What about you, Larry?
I feel the same way.
There you go.
After walking the beat for 4 years, and at 3 o'clock in the morning and minus 25, yeah, my days of walking around in the ice and the freezing temperatures is long past. So if anything, I'll go see the ice sculptures. I really enjoy that. And Beaver Tails sounds wonderful.
Absolutely, certainly does. Well, this lunch has been fun with you both today. Larry Hill, former Deputy Police Chief with Ottawa Police Service, and David Thompson, former Mayor of Deep River. Thank you, gentlemen.
Take care.
Sam, I'm working on your birthday cake as we speak.
Wow, I can't wait. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate it very much. The business lunch when we come back. Lots of great businesses to profile today. We hope you stay with us on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Ryan, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Hello, my name is Sean Duhame. And this is the Sean Duhame Trio. I hope you enjoy it.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Monday, January 30. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and Smith Falls, light snow -10. Here's what's making news this hour. With a recession on the horizon and the cost of living still through the roof, both the opposition and the Trudeau government say the economy is a top priority as they return to the federal legislature. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government will be focused on more targeted support in advance of an economic slowdown this year. Meanwhile, the leader of the federal opposition, Pierre Poilievre, plans to focus on trying to get the government to rein in on spending. And the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, says his party plans to push the Trudeau government to fulfill the terms of their mutual support agreement and roll out the planned expansion of federal dental care. The 2023 edition of Winterlude gets underway on Friday. Jantin Van Gretken, Director of Communications with Ottawa Tourism, tells the Sam Laprade show the Department of Canadian Heritage have pulled out all the stops this year with over 400 activities planned for the event. It will be 3 weeks of indoor and outdoor winter activities on Spark Street, in the Byward Market, on the Rideau Canal Skateway, and on the Gatineau side at the Jack Cartier Park. Also, many of the events are free. City News time is 12:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us here on the Business Lunch on City News. I'm Sam Laprade. I love this opportunity to talk about all things business. And Yasser Natfi joins us today to talk business. Ottawa Centre Liberal MP. Hello, Yasser.
Hi, good afternoon, Sam. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for spending time with us. And you want to talk a little business happening on Spark Street. Give us the good news.
Well, the good news is, there's a lot of work that's happening to find ways to revitalize downtown Ottawa. We know how downtown core of our city has really hit hard, especially because of the pandemic, when a lot of the hardworking public servants had to work from home for health reasons, and that has had, of course, impact on Spark Street as well. The BIA, under the leadership of Kevin McHale, does incredible work to find ways to bring more people to come to Spark Street, and the Government of Canada has been a partner with them, and most recently we've announced just under $200,000 towards Spark Street to beautify the street even more, but most importantly is to create some green space on Spark Street so that there is an opportunity for people to just sit and, have a coffee with their friends as they are taking a little break, and just to create that beautification that's much needed for Spark Street, and turn it into a destination for people to come and visit.
And Yasser, do you think that Spark Street has probably been in the news more, or we think more about Spark Street because of what happened with the so-called Freedom Convoy, that, you know, the attention of the challenges of that business there was a spotlight put on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Spark Street, as you know, has been in conversation for some time as to how do we make that pedestrian mall more attractive for people to come visit. Outside the office hours, Monday to Friday, sort of 9 to 5 period. And as I said, the BIA does an incredible job by hosting events from Poutine Fest to Chicken and Wings, Rib Fest and Busker Fest. And right now, Winterlude activities are happening, all with the effort to make it into a destination for people to come. But what we saw a year ago with the occupation of the downtown, especially Wellington Street and Spark Street, that had a huge impact in terms of the branding. People are a little hesitant coming downtown. People are not sure whether it is safe for them to be there. So there's much work needs to happen to rehabilitate that reputation, that good reputation Spark Street had, which is a place to enjoy yourself in a very safe environment. And that's the work that the BIA is doing. And of course, as a local member of parliament for Spark Street, I'm working very closely with the Spark Street BIA to find ways to revitalize, to rejuvenate Spark Street, and this funding is one part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Yasser, you had me at Rib Fest. But when we think about places like when those Rib Fests come, and it seems like there's a lot of seating put out, but it doesn't remain there, right? And is that part of that, is that you make it a little bit more friendly for people to kind of maybe grab some lunch at different places and meet their friends in the middle, of the street there to celebrate?
That's exactly the kind of opportunities that Kevin McHale at Spark Street BIA and his team are working on, is to create that inviting environment where people can stay on the street a bit longer. Of course, you have to find the right balance between all the great restaurants and the patios, and that opportunity for them to people and help these small businesses. But also, if you just want to bring your own sandwich or grab a coffee and just want to enjoy, is there a way we can create some green space with planters, with that natural beauty that is attractive for people to make Spark Street as part of their day activity? Is
this enough money to do all of that, Yasser?
Well, this is the money they requested, and so I'm glad that they got the funding. But I know there's always more to do, and I work very closely with the BIA to identify funding opportunities, not only just at the federal level, but also at the provincial and the municipal level, so that they can take full advantage of these funding opportunities, so that we can continue to do the important work.
This past weekend, Yasser, I don't have to tell you, but it was the 1-year anniversary of the so-called Freedom Convoy. Did you hold your breath a little bit, or did you feel that OPS and the parliamentary precinct had it under control?
There has been a lot of preparation that's been going to be ready for this moment as sort of the 1-year mark has come about. I can tell you that Ottawa Police has been working on this for some time. There's a lot of coordination, planning and liaising happening between the federal government, the Parliamentary Protective Services, and the Ottawa Police and City of Ottawa to ensure that there is no repeat of what happened a year ago. And I think what we've seen over the weekend, people are protesting. They're protesting peacefully, and that's totally acceptable, and that's part of our democracy. But it's happening in a way that's respectful of the community and the businesses in the area as well.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, Wellington Street, we've had lots of conversations about it. Where does your heart sit in terms of what should happen with Wellington Street? We know the City of Ottawa voted to sort of try and open that up as of March 1st. That motion has now passed to keep that closed. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been saying that this is very much a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to look at the long-term viability and reimagination of Wellington Street. I'm of the view, Sam, that Wellington Street is not just an ordinary road in city of Ottawa. This is a road that passes right in front of one of our most important democratic institution, that is the Parliament of Canada. And the importance of Wellington Street, I think, highlighted by what happened a year ago with the occupation, that this is something very unique. And so I think it should be dealt with in that unique fashion. I believe that there's a lot of alignment in terms of the long-term outcome that we all want in terms of beautification of Wellington Street, making into a place for all Canadians and those who visit our nation's capital, a place that we can tell the story of Canada, and a place that celebrates our democracy while also creating an opportunity for people to peacefully protest their government. I think a lot of the conversation that's happening right now is about the short term. What do we need to do in the short term while those long-term plans are being worked at, and federal government and the city of Ottawa is working very closely in that respect. I have expressed the view that we should keep Wellington Street close to vehicles in the short term and look at ways to animate the street with, again, putting benches and banners and flags and creating a more inviting environment, even in winter, which nothing looks good in winter in Ottawa, but with the view of then turning that something into the long term. And I think the city is deciding that no, they would like to open it to vehicles again in the short term while having a discussion around the long term. I think those conversations are important and ongoing, but what I'm heartened to see is that the long-term objectives and outcomes are very much aligned.
We've talked a lot of things about, of course, Spark Street and Wellington Street and talked a little business. I'd like to take a small detour from that, Yasser, and ask you about the incredible Hazel McCallion, who we lost yesterday at 101, the mayor of Mississauga. I'm sure your paths crossed at some point.
Oh, yes, and it has many times. And what a remarkable Canadian. What a remarkable woman, not only in Canada, but I think around the world, in terms of her public service to her community in Mississauga, and I would say around the world. She, you read the commentaries, and I think everybody's bang on that she was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, anybody who underestimated her by just looking at her physical stature, which was quite small if you have not met her, would be very surprised in terms of how resolved, resolute, straight and thorough she was in her views, and she knew how to cut through issues in such a common sense way to the core of whatever matter you're discussing. She was just a remarkable person. It's a huge loss for our country that she's gone, but I'm also heartened to think that she passed away at 101. What a remarkable life. I mean, and she worked till the last moment.
She certainly did, and beautifully said, Yasser. Thanks for sharing on Hazel. Thanks for joining us for the Business Lunch on City News.
Thank you.
Yasser Natfi joining us today, Ottawa Centre Liberal MP. Important discussion about Spark Street, also about Wellington. When we come back, we're going to talk a little pot. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, prendiamo un caffè. Let's grab a coffee and a sweet treat, a tiramisu. Salut!
On Monday's Daytime Ottawa, we're going to tell you about how you can participate in the City of Ottawa's budget process. Riley Brockington, of course, Ottawa City Councillor, will be joining us on the show. He'll give us all the details on that, and I'm really excited about this because I'm a dog person. I have 2 dogs. We're going to be joined by a local dog trainer who has just written a book called Brain Games for Your Dog. We'll tell you how you can help stimulate your dog. All that and more on Monday's Daytime.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Salut tout le monde, je m'appelle Jessie Lindsay. Venez écouter mon spectacle Encore Ottawa 3 sur Rogers TV cette semaine. Hi everybody, come listen to my Encore Ottawa 3 show on Rogers TV this week. I hope you enjoy it.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we're going to talk about the business of pot, and Sam Saeed is joining us now, president of Flower Haze. Tell me about your business, Sam.
Yeah, hi. How you doing, Sam?
Good.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about Flower Haze.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Flower Haze Cannabis Boutique is located at 1571 Bank Street near the intersection of Bank and Heron. We are not just a retail store. We like to consider ourselves as a retail destination for all cannabis-related products and accessories. So at the beginning of my venture, I realized that I needed to do something different. So with the help of a team of professionals, I designed and branded an eclectic store environment that breeds innovation and creativity within our industry. Our store is not only designed to educate beginners who are trying to find their bearing, but also caters to more experienced clients like people who look for variety and quality. And that's how we curated our menu. It's vast, but not overwhelming. But it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention our staff, who are the backbone of our business. Because of them, our community loves our store. We also provide more value for our customers through our rewards program, the Discount Club.
It's really interesting. How did you sort of get involved in this sector?
Well, it was a fairly new industry to me, and I kind of wanted to get into something, but I wasn't sure. And cannabis was, with all the hype that was happening in our city and in Canada in general, I just figured that I wanted to be part of it, and I wanted to create something that consumers can enjoy, and that's how I got into it.
And you were trying to do things a little bit different, Sam, and that's been thwarted, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I was on a mission to do something different. In late 2020, I was reading an article about an inquiry put forward to the province to study the viability of cannabis consumption places. I figured it would be logical for the province to allow consumption cafes or lounges at some point. So I pre-planned and I secured prime location with enough space to act on the idea. I built a beautiful dispensary in hopes that in the future a cafe would be built in the front portion of this space. But when the pandemic hit, we were all occupied with it, and there were no further discussions on the subject. So I still didn't let it stop me 2 years later. So I severed the store to comply with the regulations. The front portion is now being built to become a coffee shop, which will operate independently as a non-cannabis cafe. However, the branding elements and overall feel will be brought over from the dispensary to show that they are connected. If consumption cafes become legal, I'm hoping to be one of the first to market with the concept. This is the future for this industry, in my opinion.
It's really interesting that that you've planned for it, although you haven't sort of received that that go ahead yet. How hopeful are you that this day will come someday?
Well, I'm hopeful that it will come, but if it doesn't really affect me too much because I'm an entrepreneur and that's what I do. I build things from bottom up, and we are going to focus on coffee and health conscious foods, and we will operate as such. And then if at some point they would allow it, then I'll just open my coffee shop to my dispensary, and it's the perfect. I guess then my ideas will all come together and solidify. I mean, look at what we've done around liquor and beer. Entrepreneurs and major groups have built impressive industries around liquor and beer, which includes entertainment, nightlife, food and beverages. I mean, tourism, right? The ambiance and overall environment that some companies have built around liquor and entertainment business is unreal. Imagine what we can do around consumption lounges and cafes. Mm-hmm. The ideas are infinite if you let us responsibly lead the way. Canadians can be world leaders in this new industry. Not to mention cooking with cannabis is the next biggest thing, in my opinion.
It's so interesting. When people go in, Sam, and they've just never experienced anything like that before, maybe they're trying it for the first time, what are some of the questions that they ask off the top?
So they come in, so that's why I designed my store the way I did, is because we want it to be educational. And so we've put things in simpler terms for people. And most questions we get is, THC versus CBD in cannabis, and what are the responsible dosages, and how to consume, in what way, shape, or form, right? And these are all the things that we've trained our staff to basically provide the right recommendations for people that are still trying to find their bearings.
We'll certainly be following up, Sam, and see how this all works out for you. I appreciate you spending time with us today on City News.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you so much. Sam Saeed joining us today, president of Flower Haze. Such an interesting story there, and there's somebody that's got the vision for hopefully someday if he gets the go-ahead to open up a brand new style of cafe here in Ottawa. Once again, that business is called Flower Haze. Lots of things to talk about on the business lunch, of course. We love promoting some of those small businesses in our community and talk about all things business. We've always got time for you as well. Do you have anything you want to talk about business-wise? Definitely reach out to us here at City News and get a sense of what's happening. And I had a great weekend, by the way, Noah, talking about some of the small businesses we've spoke about in the last little while. Yeah. I had a fantastic weekend. I headed across the border.
You were at Motel Chelsea, right?
Motel Chelsea.
Yeah.
And it was such a throwback to the 70s.
Say, I saw a picture you posted on Twitter of the room, I believe. And
yes.
Yeah, the carpet, the couch, like everything. Yeah. I didn't live in that time. But
yeah.
Wow. It seemed very cool. And I saw your breakfast menu. It looks wonderful there.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So they've got a little restaurant and a little sort of place where you can buy foods and that type of thing. So it was great to be able to support a business like that. So it was great to have the opportunity to spend time close to home relatively, right? I mean,
how far was it from Ottawa in terms of a drive?
It took me about 40 minutes to get home to Richmond. So it's not. It's
fairly close.
So I think it's one or two exits past if you were getting off to go to Le Nordique, for instance.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I actually looked up in the hills and saw Camp Fortune and thought, is my friend Noah there?
Yeah, so actually that was a mistaken date on my part. We're actually going skiing On the 11th, I had the dates mixed up. Still at Game Fortune.
There you go.
But I will say I'm getting very nervous. I've never skied before, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, we look forward to walking you through that. I'm not a big guy. I used to cross-country ski as a kid, but I'm not a big downhill skier by any stretch.
Well, I might come in on the Monday and wrapped in some casts. We'll see how the day goes.
Well, I hope not. We also visited the Chelsea pub. Have you ever been to there?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you have to put it on your list. You have to put it on your list. Very, very popular spot right near Nordique. I'm saying Nordique because a lot of people go to Le Nordique to have a spa day.
Right.
But it's just got such great history, amazing food. I had the best French onion soup I've ever had.
You know what, Sam? Looking at this right now, I was taken there. I went hiking in Gatineau when I first moved to Ottawa just over a year ago, and my sister took me here. I had no idea of the importance or significance.
Yes.
But looking it up, yes, I was. It was wonderful. I just had some craft beer there, but it was wonderful.
Well, I went away. One of my gal pals and I went away for the weekend, and she is really into the Australian Open.
Right.
So she says to me about midnight on Saturday, by the way, Sam, we're setting our alarm for 3:30 in the morning, and we're going to watch the Australian Open. Now, I'm not a big tennis fan, but I got up at 3:30 in the morning and I watched the Australian Open. So that was lots of fun for sure. That's lots of fun. We wanted to spend some time today talking the business of bakery, and Francois Young joins us now, the owner of La Maison du Queen Amman. Is that right, Francois?
Almost, Sam. It's La Maison du Queen Amman. So you pronounce queen like a queen. Amman.
Well, there you go. Beautiful. I love the way you. I could listen to you all day. That was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Tell me a little bit about your bakery, Françoise.
Okay, so I started out of my place 8 years ago, and I started selling my products at the farmers market, local farmers market. It went really, really well. And after a few years, I had to find a place. So we found a place at 101 Schneider Road in Canada. And now we have more than 4,000 square feet, where we sell, of course, our star product, the Queen Amman, which is a specialty coming from Brittany, France, made out of layers of bread dough with butter and sugar. It's like a crispy caramelized croissant. It's delicious.
Wow.
And along with that, we do our savory and sweet crepes 7 days a week. We have our gourmet sandwiches. We're located in the heart of the high-tech sector, so we have also lots of catering orders. And we have a big section, freezer section, where we sell frozen croissants, frozen viennoiserie, chocolatine, everything that people can bake from their home, frozen meals, frozen pies, tarts, everything you can dream of.
Is this your dream, Françoise?
It is my dream, yes. When I started, I didn't know it was going to go so big, and I'm very grateful to all those wonderful customers who've been following me since the markets, and kept supporting me even through the pandemic, so I'm very, very grateful.
Oh, that's very sweet. And if we were going to visit you, what hours are you open?
So we open 7 days a week, from 7 o'clock until 7 to 7, during the weekdays, and on the weekend from 8 to 5.
Have you had a hard time attracting lots of staff, Françoise, or do you have all the staff you need?
Well, actually, that's great that you're mentioning that, because we are looking for some help at the front. It comes and go. At the front, we are recruiting lots of students. And you know how they go with school. They come, they stay 6 months, and after, unfortunately, they have to go to a different horizon. Mm-hmm. But right now, we are looking for staff in the front. It's getting a little bit better, I have a feeling, to recruit. But a few months ago, and you know probably about it, it was very, very difficult.
Oh, well, I'm really hoping maybe we've made a connection today for you. Maybe someone's going to call you and say,
I love that.
I heard you on City News, and I want to work at your beautiful bakery. That would be amazing.
I would love that.
Françoise, thanks so much for spending time with us today. Françoise Young joining us today. La Maison de Queen Amman in Canada. Sounds like an amazing spot to go. Maybe you're looking for a special treat. Maybe you want to celebrate Valentine's Day or something. Sounds like the place to head. It's been a very busy show for us today. We've talked about a lot of tough subjects today. Talking about the tragedy that has unfolded in Memphis, of course, and really thinking about the family of Tyree Nichols and that tragedy unfolding in the States. But make no mistake about it, whether you're a mom, a parent, a police officer, a resident, you saw through your own eyes that tragedy. And We want that to never, ever be repeated again, no matter where it is in the world. Thanks so much for spending time with us today on Rogers TV and City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.